Good morning, good afternoon, whatever it is, wherever you are. It's me again, Jen. Hello! And we are here again in May with the Elemental Wisdom Tarot. It is a tarot deck that is absolutely stunning, and it was lovingly lent to me by my dear friend and tarot student Taylor. If you are interested in any of the cool stuff that Taylor and I did together last month and the entire month of April, we talked about a tarot deck that is based on a video game, and Taylor kind of debuted on video. Yay! I hope to have her back to do some other videos. It'll be a lot of fun. And I think I will also have some other guests with me in the future. So this has been super fun to have somebody else to talk to, so I don't feel like I'm just talking out into the void. And so we'll see. I'm hopeful that we will have maybe next month and in future months, I'll have some of my other students and friends join us to talk a little bit about tarot. It's a lot of fun. So, without further ado, though, let's see what the Elemental Wisdom has for us today. All right. I do tend to tell you guys when I choose a card that comes up inverted or reversed, which means I drew it and it came up upside down. That's what this one did. So if you are reading these and listening to these and trying to get a little insight about them, that is something that you can garner just based on it came up inverted rather than upright. We're going to talk about the upright first, and then I'll talk a little bit about the inverted. But mostly I'm going to talk about the artistry in these cards because they are kind of stunning. So I love this card because it is a really nice representation of the swords are on there, and there's clearly two of them. And we've got the lunar aspect up there. Also, I am doing this one right around the new moon, so I like that there's a bit of a lunar aspect to it. But the biggest thing I like about this is it kind of cuts away all the extra stuff that sometimes shows up in this card when people try to interpret it in like fun artistic ways. There's always like all this extra stuff in the background and all these other things going on. This one is very cut and dry, and I appreciate that. So we have the young woman in the middle of the card, which is very typical of the Rider-Waite Tarot. There is a woman either seated or standing in the middle of kind of a shoreline, and there are rocks and things in the background, and it's kind of the shallows rather than open ocean. So sometimes there is a boat in the background and it is kind of like in a weird spot. Like it doesn't look like it can get out of where it is. So that also plays into a lot of the meanings of this card. I appreciate that there are clouds up in the sky. I think I've mentioned this in some of the other cards that I've done in past readings. Weather is kind of important. If it's done well, you can see a lot of interesting things represented in the weather. So when there are clouds, that means disputes or confusion or even sorrow or mourning or just basically tumultuous emotions. The more clouds and the worse the weather is, the more kind of conflicted or upset the energy of this card is. So the emotion of this card, which, yes, swords are typically more intellectual in action, but in this case, we have a lot of emotional stuff going on, and I'll talk more about that too. So there is a lot of air represented in this because, yes, swords are air sign representatives. So we've got a lot of wind happening with her skirts and her hair, and we can see that movement. We can see the air happening. But we also have the water, and the water is representative of emotions. And these are not free-flowing, easy-going emotions because they're interceded by rocks and gravel and twists and turns and all of this stuff. So this is not a clear-cut emotional choice, which clearly it is not. She has kind of caught herself in this stance of like she's guarding herself, but also you're not really sure how she's guarding herself because she's blindfolded. A lot of times this card will represent a lack of choice. We want to make a good choice, but we're kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place, which in her case, kind of literally. And we can't, there is no good decision, if that makes sense. So you have to make a choice, and we've all been in these situations. You have to make a choice. You know it's not going to be good either way. You kind of have to choose the lesser of two evils. It is what it is. And yet, if you don't make a choice, which that is what the inverted representation of this card is not making a choice, you are just as stuck. So she has her hands full with these swords, so she's going to have to make a choice. She's going to have to fight blindfolded whatever is coming at her, because she can't put down a sword to take her blindfold off. I mean, I suppose she could, but just for the representation of the card. Flow with me here. So she can't take her blindfold off, but she does have her swords. The good side to this, she has two options. You could have been stuck with one, is the kind of like silver lining on this, I guess. The fact that this is a nighttime represented card and the moon is kind of waning, there's also a lot of secrecy, and you probably don't have the knowledge or all of the information required to make a good decision, which is a big part of this is a hard decision to make. It is very hard to make decisions when you don't have all the information that you need, or if somebody's lying to you, or if there are secrets, or you don't want to share the information. All of these things roll up in this. I also don't appreciate that she has a red band around her middle, because this is another thing that gets people confused, is that the color representations of the elements are usually red is fire and yellow is air. So whenever I see red represented on a sword card, which usually is getting confusing for some people, I'm like, okay, swords are air, they're not fire. They're air, so that should be yellow. Please don't confuse people. Or make it black. Black is good too. But either way, when red shows up on swords, when people are like, oh, red, swords, fire, all of these things. No. Swords are air. I repeat, swords are air. Look at her skirt flowing and her hair flowing. That's what we want to look at. But there are really a lot of elements represented in this card. So decisions and information and all of those things come up. Twos are about balancing pros and cons or making choices always across the board. And as I've mentioned before, the font on this is awful. I'm just going to end on that note with this card. Otherwise, it is a stunning card, and I have loved all of them so far. So thank you again to Taylor for lending these cards to me. I hope you're enjoying my little picking apart of all of them, and I hope that all of you are enjoying this month's deck of really cool, pretty cards. Taylor has a great eye for good cards. So until next time, stay safe, stay healthy, stay happy, and I will see you tomorrow. Bye!